So good evening, my name is Manuel Sirauki, Assistant Curator at DIA. I want to welcome you all to DIA, Chelsea, and I'm very thrilled to be here today presenting our new commission, our new artist web project with Iñaki Bonillas. As many of you know, DIA has been a pioneering organization in this type of collaboration with artists. Starting its web projects program in 1995, and therefore next year it will be our 20th anniversary. First of all, I would like to acknowledge all those who keep supporting this program, which is very important for us. DIA's Board of Trustees and Commissioning Committee, Kirk August Radke, Chair, Margaret Hoffman, Jill and Peter Krause, Leslie and Mac McQuon. General support has also been provided by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. I also want to thank all my wonderful colleagues at DIA, who once again have showed an incredible passion for what we do. Many volunteers inside the team have helped bringing words and photos to the stage we will see today, because it's a work in progress. But before we look at and discuss the project, I would like to welcome Iñaki Bonillas, who has spent a few weeks in New York finalizing the work that we're presenting tonight, words and photos. Welcome, Iñaki.
Thank you, Manuel, for the introduction.
I'm going to say a few words about your work, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah, I know you're ready to go.
No.
I need my sunglasses. Okay, okay. I will sit down. So, Iñaki Bonillas was born in Mexico City in 1981 and started his career as an artist at a very early age. I always remember that the first time a museum of fine arts acquired a work of Iñaki Bonillas, he was 18 or 19, which is quite a fabulous accomplishment. His first approach to art making followed the lines of hard-boiled analytical conceptualism applied to the photographic medium. But he has ever since produced an array of works that consider not only the medium, or rather the context of photography, but also tackle issues of site specificity, public and private memories, sound, and architecture. In 2003, Iñaki Bonillas introduced a vast photo archive that he inherited from his grandfather, José Ramón.
José María Rodríguez Plaza.
José María Rodríguez Plaza.
But he took the María out, so J.R. Plaza.
Also known as J.R. Plaza. So he introduced this archive into his conceptual investigation of photography. And since then, this extraordinarily rich material, composed of thousands of portraits, many of them theatrically staged by Plaza himself, landscapes, souvenirs, and casual snapshots, has been subjected to a number of operations that have explored its formal and material qualities. These operations have resulted in installations, editions, publications, manipulated photo prints, and also in the project that we are launching now, Words and Photos. On this occasion, Iñaki Bonillas has collaborated with Mexico-based artist and programmer Iván Abreu, the design studio Taller de Comunicación Gráfica, and I will not forget María Minera, who is also with us tonight. First of all, thank you, Iñaki, for this amazing project. And I think there is no better way to introduce you than just giving you the mic and let you present the project and tell us how it works, tell everybody how it works. I think I hope you know
already how it works.
So, yes, please.
Is this
go
a
ahead.
mic, or should I?
This is a mic.
The hand
it
mic.
works. I tend to.
So, well, thank you once again for the introduction, Manuel. But maybe first of all, Jasmine, thank you so much for the invitation, and Manuel, and of course to all the DIA team. It's been a great pleasure to work with all you guys. And well, as you will see in a minute, this project has not been done just by me. It was an intense collaboration with a group of friends and collaborators. Some of them are here, and also I would like to extend my my best wishes and my, well, sincere thank you. No, and I have to say, when I received the invitation to work on DIA's web platform, I was certainly, well, very thrilled, very happy, but also quite afraid. I have to say, it's the first time I work on such a medium, and well, it's always difficult to start working on a new medium.
Well, I would like to say that actually this is a program that is based on that principle. We invite artists that don't necessarily work on the web-based medium to, I mean, in any form you can conceive, to produce something there, in a way to change the economy of internet art, so-called, but also to provoke some tectonic movement in the investigations of the artist that is invited, to see how would it work, what would happen if, you know, this medium is invested by someone who normally doesn't consider it as such. So you know, you were not the only one, but I think it's a really incredible accomplishment. I think it's one of the most ambitious web projects we've had. This archive is very vast. And not only is vast in terms of the space, you've also worked extensively on it, and you have committed yourself to working on it for a number of years, and I think, I mean, a number of years or whatever time it takes, but I think it will be quite some time. So maybe you can tell us
yes,
how it starts, and how do you enter the project? What happens when someone arrives to the page and clicks the launch button?
Just maybe a little bit previous to explaining such technicalities. At the beginning, when I first started to think on the project, I basically asked my question: what's basically the internet about? And, well, a very basic answer could be it's pretty much a huge archive, probably the greatest existing archive, where you can supposedly find everything, and a little bit that mirrors my own personal archive, the one that I've been working for 12 years, more or less. Every time I'm considering a new project, for instance, if I want to work with mirrors, I just start looking through the pages, and sooner or later I find a mirror. So basically, the archive could be, the photographic archive that I work with, it's a double of the world, or could be seen as a double of the world. And having this in mind, I thought, couldn't it be interesting to make a new double to duplicate the archive, which is basically what I've been doing one way or another. But for this project, I thought, couldn't it be interesting to do such a project without a photographic camera, but maybe using words? So basically, the project consists of doubling the 4,000 images that exist in the photographic archive, but using basically a system of indexation by words.
It is a double duplication because the archive is analog photography. You have printed photos that are then scanned and therefore duplicated, and then words are, let's say, well, written around it, superimposed, whatever you say about words and photos.
Also, I guess some of you have already seen the postcard that we printed. You can see there my grandfather, the one who took most of the photographs from the archive, or the one who collected those and arranged those, indexing a photograph. On the back side of a photograph, you can see him basically writing a word. So I thought thought it was also interesting to continue this very subtle investigation that my grandfather started. Of course, in the backside of a photograph, you're not able to write 100 words, maybe just 2 or 3. But this project invited me to complete that task. So as Manuel was saying, this is a work in progress. And for the moment, we have already indexed 10% of the archive, more or less, 400 images. And the viewers will basically, as soon as they launch the project, find a searching bar, and they are invited to place a word. And 2 things can happen. That a word will probably send the viewer back an image or a group of images, or maybe not. Maybe there are some things that are not photographically represented in the archive.
Maybe you can describe already the 2 lines that we see on the screen, and you see that some of them move because of the activity on the project already. Some words get added to the top or bottom line, as you see now. It just happened in nature. Mirror was just introduced, so it added to the line. And this line is a sequence that is not comprehensive. It's just a chunk of the line of words that show the activity of the archive. And it decomposes some sort of poem. Also, on the bottom line, you can see a bunch of words that are not there. Latch, fuck, frogs, friends, barf, pizza, etc. So, I mean, there's an element of concrete poetry that I very much enjoy about it. And well, now you see the project in full activity. You can explain maybe what are we seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So if, for instance, maybe to start with a new word, if you have a musketeer past, or you have just seen the movie The Musketeers, and you have that word in the tip of your tongue, and you will place the word musketeers to start with an idea. Sarah, can you? Yeah, that's normally in Google, they suggest you the words, but for this project, you will certainly need a dictionary, maybe close to you.
Get ready, yeah.
So on the right side, we see the first image that randomly the system throws us back, related to the word musketeers, and there we can see that there's basically 3 photographs containing musketeers. And on the left side, we can see the word that we entered, and how many different words, 142 words, have been indexed next to this image. So basically the double of this image, it's composed by 142 words. So every time you change, of course, the word, you can see that the number of images then changes. Both working boxes, so to speak, are sewed together and can suddenly, well, work in these different connections.
So yeah, maybe we can explain how this indexation came about. So Iñaki took the archive, indexed a large amount of images, and then once the conception of the device, the whole software was completed, then we were ready to index the images. There was a lot of work that we made in figuring out with Iñaki which were the requirements of this type of index. How could we avoid certain things? How many words could we consider that cover an image in a satisfactory manner? How many possibilities we have of different words, and what to do with those that actually don't relate to the archive and those that don't quite, and how can you be objective, or how free can you be at indexing an image like that one, for instance, where you see faces and expressions that you may be drawn to interpret, not only on the purely material level, but also on the emotional level and so on. And each image was attributed words by the users, well, not the users actually, the team that Iñaki put together. And we've been working on that. We've been a group of people working on that, and it's been very, very interesting because, well, there are a huge number of issues. You know, this is not a family archive for us, and the approach was not that of a personal memory or a family memory even. There is something really abstract to the archive, right?
Sure. Well, I have to say that while working on this project, I had very present, very deeply in my mind, George Perek's projects. For instance, I don't know if you know about the project where he basically decided to write down every single meal he had during a year. And of course, that list can sound a little bit cold and unnarrative, but then when you start reading it, you can suddenly discover that maybe he gained some weight, or maybe he lost some weight due to the fact of his meals, or also you can see where he was traveling, and suddenly all these narratives start to pop out in your own mind, although they are not basically listed there. And something more or less similar happened. I don't know what was your impression, but in my case, at the end, of course, all these objective words read together can be like triggering points or departure points to construct a small narrative.
Yes, there's also, well, speaking about Perec, I mean, I think we talked about his attempt to exhaust a place in Paris, and you know, is this little novella text where he goes during 3 days to the same square where he lives and describes everything thoroughly. A bus passes, the bus is half full, a woman passes with a bag, the bag contains this and that, I see something else. And this idea of attempting to exhaust not a landscape but an image, I think was quite attractive to us who collaborated in the project, to all those who volunteered, and well, starting by you who brought this up, this idea of let's try to index an image and name everything that is in the image. And I think one of the first things that one can consider about this, and also looking at the postcard and seeing Plaza writing behind on the back of the photo, is that indexing and captioning are not the same thing. It's not the same operation. And the caption is normally a description, you know, that sort of, you know, like gives a framework for what you're seeing, but indexing really builds up an equivalence. There's a relation of substitution or exhaustion too. And I would like to ask you too about this idea of, instead of going to the lyrical side, you would go for the analytical indexation instead.
Yeah, actually,
because there are words, very interesting words written on the back of the images that you've worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not all of them have been there directly placed by me. We've been collaborating a group of 10 people, more or less, so sometimes I'm also very surprised to see suddenly a word related to one image that I hadn't thought of, or the other way around. Sometimes, for instance, now that we've been practicing how the project runs, sometimes on the negative list of words, I find a word that I can't believe we missed, that it surely should be indexed to one or another images. So a part of that list being just what supposedly you cannot find in the archive, or what it's not represented visually in the archive. It's also a list that suggests new future entries, which makes me think that well, every now and then, every time I do a project with the archive, I feel that I've been that I've done pretty much everything that can be done with this photographic archive. And now it seems that the photographic archive slapped the table and said, you're never going to get rid of me, and now you're going to have to keep on indexing me for the rest of your life. So I guess that's a little bit what happens when you are closing some doors, suddenly some others open.
Yes, we talked about this this afternoon, and Iñaki told me that it was some sort of satisfaction and frustration to have tried to finalize your work with the archive several times, and it never worked. There was always something new coming up, and when you thought you were done, then we came up and proposed you to do something, and obviously the archive was the material that you thought was most logical to use. It's some sort of Freudian trap that, you know, you want to get rid of it, and therefore you are going to produce a work that is the last, but it will never end.
Of course,
so
it's
you will keep doing
more
it.
Open than ever, no?
Exactly.
And well, something that might be interesting to say is that I've never digitalized all the archive. Every time I am working on a specific project dealing with the archive, I basically decide which medium I'm going to use to reproduce those photographs. I never intervene directly the originals because my family will kill me. So basically, I always have to rephotograph them. Sometimes I scan them, or sometimes I do every single trick you can imagine to duplicate the archive. And every time I do such a thing, I normally remove the photographs from the black pages where they had been previously glued by my grandfather. And when I decided to do such a project for DIA and finally digitalize the whole archive, I discovered that basically all the archive, it's pretty much empty. You can only see black pages because I've removed quite a big portion of them. And I'm wondering now how my relation is going to be with a digitalized archive. In the beginning, I had it on my shelves, and every time my memory sent me an image to work with, I had to find it in a volume, look for it, reproduce it, and it was like a ritualistic kind of thing. And also now that's going to be probably lost. And also the hierarchies of the images. I mean, some of them are completely arranged by my grandfather in a curious way. And now that it's digitalized, that of course is going to be lost. I mean, all the images, doesn't matter if they are small or big, are going to be equivalent to the size of my working screen. So I wonder what's going to be that like.
There are some issues that you intuited as soon as you got the archive, and we spoke about some of the works that in a way foreshadow this this process, and maybe we can take a look at them, Sarah. There are the works that are on the photo thing, yeah. So this is a very early work, Little History of Photography #2. The first one was a site-specific installation dealing with someone else's shelves, and it's not very appropriate to document. You always said that it's better not to have any documentation of it and go straight to the second
It was difficult to document.
But this first work where you got hold of the archive is quite interesting because, again, you were drawn to deal with the totality of it immediately, and you could only do that through this mediation of rephotographing it. So maybe you could say something. Could we pass to the next image? Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, basically what I inherited, that's like the basic corpse of the archive, although it's not every single element, but the most distinguished member of the archive is a collection of 30 leather files with photographs arranged more or less chronologically, and every single page, every single archive has the same amount of pages. My grandfather was quite obsessed about how things should be arranged and displayed and so on. So basically, if we can go back, sorry, Sarah, we have 30 different light boxes. Each light box represents one of the files, and what you can see, if we go 2 images further, it's basically hectachromes of hectachromes. It's a 4 by 5 inches diapositive. So basically, I just took pictures of every single page. Slides from every single page of the archive. And since I had just stolen, so to speak, this material from my grandmother, I decided to open it to the light. I mean, that's why the light boxes are there. I mean, let's see what this material is about. Let's make a display of it and try to more or less sense the ocean of images that I've suddenly acquired. I have to say that I started to work as an assistant of a photographer. He is an uncle of mine, and in a way being or dealing with all the peripheral aspects of photography.
Sorry, Iñaki, when you were like 16?
14 something. I discovered that he was the photographer
Important
of the covers of the music that I used to hear. So I called him and I want to be next to those rockers that you're photographing. So please let me be your assistant. I just took a basic course and then started to work as his assistant. And of course, taking care of everything before the actual photograph takes place marked me in a way. I mean, I had to take care of developing the films. I had to take care of preparing the screen, the light, but never actually taking the picture. And in a way, I thought if I become a photographer, I might steal the job to my uncle, and he has been so generous with me that it maybe might be interesting never to take a picture. How can I be an artist working with photography without taking directly pictures?
You mean that you're becoming an artist was a sacrifice?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay,
I mean, and so to speak. And of course, when my grandfather died and I inherited this vast collection of images, it couldn't be more appropriate. Like now, I certainly don't need to take a single picture. I mean, everything is already recorded here. So let's recycle a little bit. And well, this is what this project is about.
Exactly. Well, I'm astonished that the way you tackled this question from the start was just to create a layout. In other words, you didn't start with an interpretation or adjustment of it. You needed to exhibit it, to present it, to represent it, to reproduce it, and reproduce the reproductions, and then see them in space. And in a way, that gesture, I think that equals you with the viewer. You are there exactly as surprised as the viewers who don't know what to do with this material, and you did that because you didn't know what to do with the material. So I think it's a very interesting gesture. Then I think you took a more ambitious or more aggressive approach with your vertical. I mean, it's again.
I think it's the following project after
this
Little History of Photography.
Yes, exactly. I have the full title.
Don't pay attention to that title.
Todas las fotografías verticales del archivo J.R. Plaza, all the vertical photographs of the J.R. Plaza archive, and we can skip on. There you go. So that you rephotographed in order to equalize them and to produce this non-narrative, this sort of mass, right?
Exactly. Sorry, Sarah, because we have this image. Don't worry. As you will see further on when you surf the project, you will find out that although it's a family archive, my grandfather was paying a lot of attention to himself, or most of the time he was basically taking pictures of himself. And of course, the vertical position of the camera is more accurate for such a type of portraits that my grandfather was doing. And at the same time, I discovered a script he did for a Western film, which sadly was never finally produced. It's called 5 Minutes to Die, and it's a Western. And I thought, if I arrange chronologically all these photographic portraits, I rephotograph them, enlarge them, all of them at the same size, and arrange them in a chronological way, aren't we in 5 minutes visiting a person that at the end finally dies? And basically, it's what you can see in this, recorrido, like this journey from technicalities of photography.
Again,
from
a journey, but a very abstract one, because it's basically this very how to say
also the technical aspects of photography, not going from black and white to color.
But it's an interesting twisted idea to think about the portrait format as a portrait. So you see a portrayal of the photographer through all these portrait formats that don't necessarily contain his image. It's an interesting twist, you know, this chronology you're thinking of the photographer as a life, you know, of the portrait format in his archive. And so I think it's a very interesting investigation, and of course I think the format betrays something that is, you know, obviously is narrative because the viewer lives in a diachronic perception situation, especially when you go through an exhibition room. But at the same time, there's such a simultaneity of images that it overwhelms that narrative. And then another project, and I think closer in time, but also closer to the ideas that we've been discussing about words and photos, is this untitled work. Well, it's titled Archivo J.R. Plaza.
Reversos, the back sides.
Exactly, but it's the back sides. Yes, you can keep going one more. There you go. And that one shows the back sides of the photos. So enlarged, carefully selected, it's about 28, 30 of them?
Yeah, 28, okay. Well, very precise. Yeah, 28, and most of the photographs have a mark, an annotation, or a group of annotations, but most of them are very technical inscriptions. Where the photograph was taken, which year, which are the persons that appear on the other side of the photograph. But at a certain point, there are several texts that can be a little bit more poetic or descriptive of the actual image. There's a particular one that I like. I think it's the next one. Which is a reiterative, I think it's the next one, reiterative me. It's an underlined me. So I was selecting these texts that in a way help the viewer to construct a more interesting image that you couldn't see, your own personal no?
Again, to give you a timeline, the first one we saw, Little's History of Photography, was made in 2003. Iñaki was 22. The next one was then made a year after, and this one is from 2005, right?
And exactly, at this time, I thought I was done with the archive.
Exactly, and I want to emphasize that was 10 years ago, and since then Iñaki has yet worked in many other occasions on the archive, and going in a much more neo-Baroque way, interested in symbols, in spaces that are between structure and allegorical image, things that are very sophisticated in a way. All these cancellations of the archive, all these moments where you thought, I'm canceling my investigation with this work, then
somehow they terminate with something that brings back this abstraction of the very early approach. That's at least my feeling with words and photos. And
sure, it also happens that every time I decide, for instance, to do a site-specific project that doesn't deal at all with the archive, that project ends up mirroring some aspects of the archive that I hadn't thought of. So then I go back again. So it seems that every time I am trying to get out, I am pulling myself in.
Sarah, could we go back to the web project, please? I would like to say a few remarks. We spoke about Perec, but I think there are a couple other thoughts that have been striking me, and I would like to share them with everybody here, with you, and then after that, hear what you think, and then maybe open up the mic to everybody's voices. The one thing I really like in some of your statements about the work and specifically dealing with the archive, you always talked about the pleasure of enumeration, the pleasure of listing and sort of like recomputing. And again, this work that you've done in the analog medium has been computational, has been indexical, but was not digital. And now that you're moving to the digital side of things, well, all this process is quite natural to you: indexation, computation, classification, randomizing, reordering. So that was that's one remark that I wanted to share with you, and also the fact that this screen that shows us the image, which is not the image, but it is the image. In a way, it's a double screen. I've always felt that your work in photography is like a screen with two sides, with two projections on it. From one end, you project all this family history that is kind of encrypted for you too. You don't quite understand. We spoke about some really curious cases where you see an image, you assume it's something, oh, these are my grandparents doing this, and actually they're doing something totally unrelated, and you had to do some research after that. So it's a projection of the encrypted family memory, and from the other side, it is a projection of very depersonalized, abstract concerns about the photographic medium, where you look at it as just material. There's this thing about like pseudo found material, or not quite, randomly found, but at the same time strange material, and this estrangement about the archive. Could you speak about that estrangement and the abstraction that you are applying to it, and at the same time your personal concerns? How does that work?
Sure. Well, I don't know. I guess if I had the chance to work with a similar archive that suddenly I could find in a flea market, for instance, containing more or less the same type of images, I guess I'll be able to work with it as well. It's not just the fact that it belonged to my family or to my grandfather that I decided to work with. That's for me a second layer, which is important, and it's certainly there. But it was more the actual discovery of a photographic material that had everything on it that triggered my imagination. I basically, have to say, it's a curious anecdote. For me, when I was staying at my grandfather's place, and I was living in his bedroom, and actually the archive was positioned in a bookshelf next to me, I was always looking at these black spines, black leather folders, completely numbered and perfectly well kept. And I had in mind Onkawara. That was like the first connection with the archive. This looks quite conceptual. This might be something interesting for me to work with. And then the biographical part comes in a way as a second thought, or as a second investigation.
That's quite provocative to think about family as a conceptual work in itself, right?
At least from the outside. Of course, if you open it, it changes dramatically. But if you just consider the shell,
sometimes you can call it like Gothic conceptualism. But yeah, I think that's quite fascinating about your artistic vision. The fact that you were looking at your family archive and then you think about Onkawara,
and not about my grandfather.
In some cases, what you expect is that. I mean, I guess the most common thing for people, and I really hope I hear many different opinions, but for me it seems quite logical that you will get some sort of aesthetic block, and you cannot have an aesthetic judgment on these things that are so saturated with memory, meaning, affection, and frustration. I mean, all the components of the psychology of the family.
Sure. Well, I also have to say that I just appear on the last file of the collection of images, and in a way, I'm the second generation that supposedly should have acquired that material. So there's some gap in between. There's some air. I guess, for instance, my mother feels a little bit more touched about the fact that she has now become a museum piece or so. But it's certainly not my case. I mean, I feel there's some distance.
You're not proud. You don't bring your family. It's like, Mom, look, there you go. But Sarah, I think we could maybe. Well, that image has 300 words, so we can maybe move to another image that has a little less and go through the. Just go through all the words and see what happens, because yeah, that could be the average is 150 words, and what we live in a society of multitaskers and attention deprivation, distraction. Yeah, attention deficit, and you see that the principles we just gave you sound quite straightforward. You have an image, you have the index, so you're supposed to go through the image and see all the words that saturate the image. But normally, instinctively, anybody is not capable to do that. What you do is like you start going through it, and you see you can keep going. Bathrobe, content, yellow, and you have 140 more to go, and bodies and so on and so forth. So most likely you will be tempted to change and move to another image at some point. And then you will pretty much repeat the operation and go through the images that contain, for instance, bloom, and see, oh, I'm so curious about relaxed. Let's see. And then you will move. You will move from one image to another, or you will explore the words, but your attention will not follow, because sometimes you have 200 words. And at some point you get lost in the image and you don't remember. And then you move to another image and you start going through the words, and then you move to another image. So, which means that basically after doing this a few times, when you enter the archive, you're totally lost. You're totally lost in words. And this idea of mapping actually is what I was telling Iñaki before our talk. I was telling him, this is really a trap. There's this indexical analytical purpose to the archive. Actually, it's not. It's a real trap. It's a real trap in mapping. You start mapping and then you get lost in the map, and then you have to leave the project and maybe turn off your computer. So I really appreciate that aspect. That the project is itself something that it cannot fulfill because of the viewer's own deficiency. So I will not go and say that it's a critique of something, but it is an actual operation that is even if it's unwanted, is very interesting and perverse. How unwanted it is. How much did you ponder this type of bewilderment when you were building up the archive with your programmer Ivan Abreu and company?
Sure, no, I'm also, very curious now to be the own spectator of the project, because we've been so involved in what you cannot actually see here, but what's behind here, all the mechanism that allowed us to tag and to find words from the dictionary and all the structures. So I haven't had really the time yet to focus on this aspect of the work. So I'm really curious if I'm gonna feel as lost as you. I'll let you know. I mean.
Okay. Well, I like how you dribble the question. Okay. Just a couple more things, and then I think we're ready to hear everybody's opinion. You are all hearing our accents, and English is not our mother tongue, and this was a very actually it was. I just like the accent. Okay. The language component is very critical to us because at some point we're speaking about estrangement. We mentioned Beckett and how Beckett preferred to write in French because he didn't feel so constrained by what he knew about the language. And this project was a commission from DIA, so logically, Iñaki speaking pretty good English, he decided to go for it in English. But at the same time, there is an effect of estrangement for us when looking at it, and there is a panoramic view of the lexicon that for us is pretty neutral. But for the American users, and we've tested this with some of the colleagues that have helped us, that are natural English speakers, you find words that sometimes are completely unused, and I wanted to emphasize that the archive has this really interesting element that you look at an image and you start seeing words that you never use. And that they exist on the same level as the words that are most common. I want to give you some data, which is, I think, quite interesting. The matrix that we used to index had a dictionary embedded in it, and the dictionary had about 110,000 words. We indexed 400 images, which is 10% of the archive, and like by coincidence, the number of words we use is 11,000. So it's pretty much the 11% of the dictionary. That doesn't mean that we will reach one day 4,000 images and then we will have 100,000 words. Not at all. I'm sure, like many specialized words and many prepositions or obscure technical words will never appear. But it is interesting that, considering the totality of the archive being indexed, there will be a big chunk, a big shadow that is the dictionary's unused material. And I want to emphasize that because I think it's a really fascinating part of the project. That not only we're trying to exhaust images, and we can't, but we can't exhaust the dictionary either.
Sure. Some curious things happen. For instance, there's plenty of images. Most of my family, or at least the family that happens to be portrayed in the archive, comes from Spain. And many of the photographs you see there are from gatherings, after lunch gatherings in Spain and in Mexico. We call that sobremesa. And to describe sobremesa in English was a hell of a job. I mean, it seems that it's complicated to find such a word that we use every day, no? Or, I mean, very commonly.
Absolutely.
And, also, it's quite intriguing to see how we've lost the possibility to name things by their proper name. I mean, we are now normally saying, can you give me this? Can you pass me that? Can you show me? And you're all the time like mimicking things or describing things with your hand, due to the fact that sometimes search bars as this one do the work for you. You're just typing the first 3 letters of a word, and then you have a suggestion, and then you don't have to do an effort anymore. So that was pretty much as well what the project was about, getting to know how to name things, and in English. So it was like a double task. Learning how to name things in another language.
I can help bringing up the famous adagio, motto of Confucius, that Isra Pound repeated and that then came to other people, including Carl Andre. that when Confucius was asked what would he do if he was given the opportunity to rule a state, to be the governor, he would say the first thing I do would be to name things by their proper names, and
we should use that
as the keystone of a right, of a correct political government. They're so funny. Okay.
That seems like a very nice word to close. Probably,
well, exactly. And
like
yeah,
a very nice. Yeah.
Exactly. True to the
Epigraph.
rules of good governance, we're going to pass the microphone. If you have questions and comments or any type of curiosity, we're more than happy to hear them. Otherwise, we will keep talking. Okay.
Hi. I feel lame asking a question about the actual contents of the archive, because in some ways this talk and the exercise is one about the kind of the latent content, the structure of the archive rather than the manifest content. But I'm just curious if you can say something about who took a lot of these photographs.
Yes, I guess most of them were taken by my grandfather. I guess he had always with him a tripod and a camera with an automatic shooter because you see there's a lot of staging. I mean, he was pretty much aware of the photographic medium and willing to be part of that. So that's one part of the archive. Then on the other hand, my grandfather inherited a lot of photographs from his own family and from the family of my grandmother. So that's why some of the images date back to early 1900s. And then at the end, there was also in the group of friends from my grandfather a professional photographer. So for instance, if we put the word cowboy and we search a little bit through the images, you see that these images are quite professionally staged. I mean, they're not the typical image you can find in your family album. So yes, there was a professional photographer involved as well.
Yeah, I think now we just can't help telling the cowboy story of your grandfather.
Yes, he...
Because there's too many and it seems totally absurd if we don't know.
No, of course, I think he thought of himself of a very handsome man, probably even more handsome than John Wayne, and I guess he thought that he deserved basically his place, and he actually, in fact, did a trip to Wyoming as a youngster, thinking that he was going to become a real cowboy. And he wrote a diary of all the disgraces he found living the life of a cowboy. So I guess he thought, let's better live the life of a cowboy in a photographic studio that's much more comfortable and forget about reality. So I guess there's a lot of fictional aspects also involved in this family album.
Which is the desire of the image. You don't desire the form of life itself. You desire the image, and that's quite contemporary. I mean, think about the selfies. I mean,
exactly. I don't know if we place the word Hollywood. I don't know if he will appear disguised also as a Hollywood actor, maybe a little bit further. Well. Who asked? Sorry. Yes. Actually, I did. He passed away in the year 2000. So I spent like almost 19 years of my life. I mean, close to him. He was sort of an important paternal figure. So I was kind of close to him, and yeah, I don't know if actually he was so well. He liked to keep his things for himself, and me being as possible destructive child, I had not authorization to use this material. So I guess when he passed away, I thought, now this is my opportunity to get to know this stubborn man as well, no? Yes, really on the last, almost on the last folder. We haven't got there yet. Hopefully, we don't get very.
It's not scanned
soon.
yet.
It's not scanned yet, but
we want to see Iñaki as a baby, naked.
Actually, yeah, the first image from the from the archive is a pinhole camera. It's a photograph taken with a pinhole camera. And then the last one is a digital print of a photograph I took of my grandmother with a digital camera. So it's pretty much all a history of photography. That's why I took Walter Benjamin's title of the book, to use it as a reference to my first project, Little History of Photography.
Iñaki, just going back to the cowboy material, did you have to do research to understand those photos, or did you know the story already?
Yeah, the story of my grandfather as a cowboy was quite popular during my early days. He had the typical touristic poster in his closet that said "Wanted, Dead or Alive," and then just below "Dead" in parentheses, preferably dead, J.R. Plaza. And he was constantly telling me, the story that he had been a cowboy and that he got into a fight with a rancher, and they took his passport away, and he couldn't enter anymore to the States. That was all fictional, but he liked to tell that story, of course. And I inherited his revolver, by the way, so that's something, of course.
Iñaki,
meaningful, I guess.
I have a super simple technical question. How did you build the list associated with each image? Did you go through meticulously each image and kind of identify all the elements?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe thanks to Tern's question, shall we show the working platform, or maybe...
As you prefer, yeah, we can show the matrix, yeah. Is it on?
I guess maybe Sarah can help us to be more precise. I worked with Ivan Abreu, an artist and a programmer, building this tagging platform that we had to design and to produce.
You remember the password?
Don't worry. No, we had to construct
You can type it in if you want.
I don't remember, because it's so strange letters and words.
Yeah, well, basically what you find is the whole catalog of images. Then you select one image by number or by the words that you are associating already with some images. You select it to tag, and then you go to this interface where you can tag the image, and you have several options. You can directly tag the image with words that appear in the dictionary. When they don't appear in the dictionary, the system indicates that they don't. But you can also use several props to tag the images more easily. There are a lot of categories that users have made during the construction of the matrix. So you have the body category and all the names and synonyms for the limbs and the parts of the face and the areas of the body. You have the category landscape, or you have the category
architecture, or parts of a car. Or
exactly, cars, architecture. So that helps a lot to fill the images and also to create this homogeneous field of description, basically, in terms that you can take 5 images and tag them if they all contain a human body in a swimsuit, for instance. You can tag them all and then go to the singularities. So you start with the generic aspects and then you go to the singularities. There you go.
Yeah, so you select the image. You can see there we've tagged already 103 words to that image. So if we select an image and we go to tag, we'll see all the list of words related to that image. And then you can use all those tools that you find above to keep on adding words. For instance, next to the image, there's a sort of a symbol, and that symbol, once you push it, it will randomly select words from the dictionary. So if your mind dries and there's not a single word coming, you can then use that tool, and suddenly maybe a word might pop out that it's useful for the image.
Also, if you go with the mouse over the image, you see that there's a magnifier, so you can really look into the detail.
And then we have an English dictionary, and you can just, with definitions, not all of the words have definitions, but some of them do. So that in a way gained us a lot of time, because we were going from the dictionary to the working platform and we were losing a lot of time. So having everything condensed in the working platform was very, very useful, no? And also...
and there you go, she's tagging the word sisterhood onto the image. You can also use synonyms. If you see, for instance, a blouse or a shirt, you want the synonyms too, then you can go and search the word by synonyms. Add synonyms to the image. So it's quite sophisticated, but this is all not public, and this is not supposed to be the word. These are the guts of the project. It's not the image. This is pretty much like a studio visit, or like a painter showing you how. Richter showing you how he makes a painting, and this is pretty much how the archive gets indexed, and you get the final product. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, of course. At a certain point, we thought about opening to the wide public, but you need to be aware that some vandalism can be done. So at a certain point, we decided to open it, but not so widely. So I've been basically inviting my friends, the people that I know, or just people that are fond of my work or would like to be involved in the project. So then I'll send the passwords, and they can index an image, and then their name will be certainly included on the list of collaborators of the project.
Yeah,
that's an aspect of the project to make it. Certainly.
Absolutely, and there's a dimension of editing that is very important, which makes it more complicated to create like a mass collaboration, because if you have 20 people indexing images and then you have to follow up with them so you know when it's ready, and then you go and edit, or even if you have like an open number of people and you really don't know which images are being indexed, you cannot really follow up on the editing. And sometimes it's just it's easy to make mistakes. It's easy to insert a misspelling, or to assume that something is stone and actually it isn't. And so there's a revision that is needed every time an image is finalized. So it's very complicated for like one person, or even Iñaki and Maria both together. It's quite challenging to have such an activity. So that's why it's quite restrained. But there's no principle against public. Yes, please. The other side.
I was wondering, Iñaki, now that the archive is out there, is the fact that other people can use these images a concern of interest?
Well, they are. I hope they are locked. No, they are certainly locked. You cannot download them. But of course, you can take a picture of your screen and use them, and I cannot do anything if that happens. It's certainly a risk. but I mean, I'm working with material that I appropriate all the time, so it would be logical to do a contrary thing and really do something very legal about the aspect of the use of this material. I mean, I prefer to be relaxed on that matter, and if somebody desires to use an image, he can do so if he can. I mean.
Questions?
I hope I will be clear. So I want to ask if when you were assistant photographer, you were familiar with the archive as well?
No, thank you for your question. No, at that time of my life, I wasn't so familiar. I started to work as an assistant of a photographer very early, and then I managed to, I mean, very, very early in my life, when I was 14 or 15, 95 or something like that. And then I started to use the archive back in 2000. I moved to Brussels. I started to work with a gallery over there, and I moved and I took with me the archive. That was basically the first thing that I did. I don't know why. I guess I was homesick, and I took my home with me all the way.
Okay, and so working with the gallery, did you already manage the photo gallery of the gallery?
Sorry?
So, I mean, working in the gallery, working as an artist.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I was not precise.
So, and then before this project, did you discover other archives, other photo archives? Did you study some archives already?
No. I mean, I started showing my work in 1998, and then I incorporated the archive in 2000. So basically, this is my first encounter with an archive. Although back in the days that I was working as an assistant of a photographer, every time the photographer throw a photograph to the wastebasket, I took possession of that material, never used it, but that could be thought of an archive, or of my first possible contact with an archive.
And do you know if there are? Do you know some artists that made the same kind of work with other photos?
Yes, sure. I think there's plenty of artists working with photographic archives that belong to their families.
There is someone that you like?
Those things always take some time. But maybe Maria, do you have a name in mind? Yeah, I mean, in the DIA web projects, there's certainly an artist that worked already with images that belong, I guess, to his own family. But maybe I can send you an email later on with some names, because
you can look in DIA's web projects. Glenn Ligon in 2003 did a project that involved family archives, but again, we also had several works on the alphabet, by different artists, by Dorit McGreiter and Shannon Ebner. It's definitely a genre, but it's. No, I mean, I think we never spoke about influences in this case. We spoke about influence in the strategies that Iñaki is using, like Jos Perec or.
Sure, there's this Hans-Peter Feldman project. He was.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and knowing other archives, it's quite interesting. So I was wondering if you had something like that you particularly like or not.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't mind working with the Avi Warburg archive or something like that. But for the moment, I'm quite busy with this one. So. Let's see.
So, I mean, the idea of structuring this with two
like windows.
Yeah, two windows, and only one image and only one word is conceived like this since the beginning, and it's
Yes,
like a fixed thing, or it can change, then you get inspired at the end that you would add something different, I don't know.
No, the idea basically was to find a balance or like an equal balance to words and images. That's why they both have like a box that measures more or less the same size. And
But at the beginning there was nothing. You know, we didn't take any type of template. We just started working with the material, and Iñaki worked with Ivan Abreu, the programmer, and they came up with the structure. So,
but only the working structure. What? No, that's all those categories have been done by us who did the tagging system. Ivan Abreu only helped us to program the working platform and to link the working platform with what you see here. But then what you see here, it's a graphical work that I did in collaboration with the bureau that I normally work with, Taller de Comunicación Gráfica.
Maybe a last question. I mean, I think you can talk to Iñaki later if you want, but let's share the time with other members of the audience. Yes?
I did want to ask a question about the kind of archive as an archive, and I'm just curious about, so there exists some kind of index of all of the words, but all of the possible tags and key words that have been associated with these images, but it's a very conscious decision to not make that index visible, to kind of have somebody discover the contours of that. I'm just wondering if you can speak a little bit more about that and its relationship, the collection versus the archive, as it were.
Sure. I guess since the beginning, I had Étant donné, the work of Marcel Duchamp, in mind, and I kind of like these pinholes in a door that allowed you to see, but not the entire picture. I mean, you really need to do your own work to be able to see every single detail. And I wanted to keep that intimacy in the project. As also an opposition to Google Images, for instance. You just place a word and you get a vast display of images. And in a way, I wanted to do something quite opposite. You place a word and you get one image, and you need to take some time to find the connection between the word and the image, and then you can move forward. But I thought that was what the project asked for.
We had a number of debates about this issue, and
in the beginning was the first.
I remember like 3 or 4 Skype conversations, and then Iñaki said like, okay, now I'm going to think, and then like a few weeks later he came up with this structure, and then we saw what we were aiming for. Maybe a last question before we wrap it up and have a last drink. All right, well, I think it's nearing 8 o'clock. I can only thank you all for staying all the length of this event, for your presence and your attention, and see you next time at DIA. Saturday we have a really fascinating conference on monuments, and you're absolutely welcome to join. It will be from 4 to 7 with Margaret Katansky and Mabel Wilson. You're absolutely welcome to come too, and thank you very much. Thank you, Iñaki, for this project, and see you soon.